Good evening and happy Halloween! Welcome to Monstrously Modern Fables. Now tonight we're going to be doing something really special. Usually I have my lovely co-host Edgar, but there's been a tragic accident and I lost him. But it's going to be okay because it's All Hallows Eve. The spirits are much closer to us. I think we can find Edgar and I think we can bring him back. Want to help me? Here, let's see if we can get a hold of him first. Edgar? Edgar, are you there? Hello, Edgar, it's E.R.A. What? No, I need you to come back. No, you can't retire. The kitchen's a mess. You gotta come back, Edgar. Okay, you sure? All right, wonderful. Okay, Edgar says he's ready. Are you guys ready? Okay, here we go. What happened to him, do you ask? Oh, it was quite the tragedy. We were celebrating the first day of fall. We were so happy that that dreadful summertime was over, and we were opening some champagne. I heard Edgar in the other room. There was this loud pop, and then I heard him fall to the floor. I ran in there, and he was lying on the ground with a cork in his eye. Dad. Now, as tragic as that is, and as sad as I am that we lost him, I think we can bring him back. Want to help me? Okay, let's bring him back. Servant of mine, I call to thee. I give you an offering of these sweet, tasty treats. Come back to me. Now I need your help. You're going to have to say this with me. Edgar, come back to us. We miss you. 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 Edgar! Look, Edgar's back! We did it! Edgar's back! It worked, everybody! It worked! Edgar's back! Look, Edgar, I have your favorite treats. So, Edgar, what did you do in the spirit world?
Well, the first thing I did was get some ice for my bloody eye. It hurt profusely. But I met a wonderful spirit. Thank you for bringing me back.
Thank you for coming back. The kitchen's waiting.
Of course. My mistress.
Edgar.
Yes.
I have another chore for you.
Yes.
Well, I had a little oopsie and there's some bodies in the backyard that need to disappear.
How big?
Well, pretty big.
I'll get the shovel, my mistress.
Edgar.
Yes, my mistress.
Do you know what Monstrously Modern Fables are?
I do not.
We're taking stories from all over the world, classic fables that families have shared for generations, and we're rewriting them into modern times and sharing them with the lovelies at home.
A splendid idea. I look forward to hearing them.
Edgar.
Yes, my mistress.
It's time for us to go inside and start Monstrously Modern Fables. We have so many wonderful stories to share with our lovelies out there.
This is true. Lead on, my lovely. And happy Halloween.
Welcome to Monstrously Modern Fables. Let's see what the cards have for us tonight. The Emperor. The Emperor is the father figure of the deck. It's really good to pay attention to him. This reminds me of a story called The Tall Hat Man. Raging against the injustice of her father's words, she ran out into the night to find her love, never to return. Susanna, did you remember to lock the store? Her father asked with a tired expression, rubbing his wrinkled hands over his face. Yes, Papa. Can I go now? Raina and Isabella are waiting for me. Susanna shuffled her feet and fluffed her long, thick hair. She hated being home with her father. His overprotection was like a shroud clinging to her ever since Mama died. She loved him, but also wanted to be free of his rule. She was 16 now, after all, and she should be able to do whatever she wanted. I don't think it's a good idea. It's dark already, and young ladies should be home after dark. Her father shook his head and sat down on his recliner in front of the fireplace. Susanna stood near the doorway, unsure what she would do. Her father worked all day building and repairing roads for the city. By the time evening came, he was exhausted and impatient. He wanted quiet companionship, but she wanted to laugh and dance. When Susanna's mother was alive, her parents ran the bakery together. But now that her mother was gone, her father rarely went into the shop anymore, as if the memories were too much to bear. Susanna took it over a few years ago, opening after school and on weekends. It gave them extra money, and she felt closer to her mother there, baking in the same kitchen as she had, using the same recipes. It was a blessing. Please, Papa, next week is La Quema del Diablo, and we're trying to decide what we want to wear. Even more reason to stay inside. People behave badly around holiday times. Come sit with me and we can read together. I brought you a new book. Susanna was curiously delighted to see what he found this time. It was a new version of La Llorona. She'd heard hundreds of versions, even one from the time of the Maya, but she never tired of it. He knew it was her favorite. In some ways, he was a wonderful father. Tomorrow, please, Papa. I'll only be gone an hour and I'll have my phone with me. They're at Raina's house. It's only a few blocks away. Her large hazel eyes were filled with gentle pleading. All right, be home in 1 hour, no later. Susanna smiled, kissed her father on the cheek, and ran out of the house quickly before he could change his mind. The neighborhood was still bustling with early evening activity, and Susanna happily waved at her neighbors along the way. She walked faster, excited to plan for next week. She was hoping the right outfit might capture Jimmy's attention. She'd caught him staring at her during school, but he still hadn't spoken to her yet. She thought the right outfit might give him the nudge he needed to act. Susanna knocked on the door and Raina's mother answered. Hey, sweetheart, so happy to see you. The girls are in Raina's room. Susanna gave her a large smile, came inside, and went to her friend's room. Oh, I can't believe he let you out after dark, Raina said, laughing, after Susanna came in and closed the bedroom door. Did he give you that all good ladies nonsense? What century is your dad from? Isabella chimed in, giggling. Isabella loved Susanna's father, often coming over to listen to him read and enjoying his delicious cooking. But she was trying to be funny. Of course he did. I only have an hour before I have to get back home. Susanna laughed and hopped on the bed with her friends. They spent the next hours going through photos on their phone and trying on piles of Raina's clothes. Her father was a surgeon and he spoiled her. She didn't wear half the things he bought for her and had no problem sharing them with her friends. You're so lucky to have anything you want, Susanna told Raina while pulling on a stylish red dress. I don't have everything. I hardly see my father, and when I do, he's occupied with work. Sometimes he's devastated over losing people or troubles at the hospital. Your dad has dinner with you every night, and you still read stories together. That's pretty great. Raina answered while staring out her bedroom window, as if she was searching for something lost. It's kind of embarrassing. He treats me like a child. Susanna answered and spun in front of the vanity. The color of the dress brought out the light gold tones of her complexion. But he loves you, and that's special, Raina answered, turning around and frowning slightly at Susanna. Before an argument could start, Isabella threw a decorative pillow at Raina. It bounced off her forehead harmlessly, and she laughed. Susanna joined in. The two friends were very different, and Isabella was the glue that held the triumvirate together. She helped them find compromise and appreciate each other's differences, while she had a lot in common with them both. Susanna, we lost track of time. It's after 10 already. You better get home before your dad freaks out, Isabella cried as she looked at her phone. Oh no, I was supposed to be home 2 hours ago. Susanna checked her phone. Her father hadn't called, so he must have fallen asleep in his chair. He did that often. He hasn't called yet. I'm going to run back and maybe he won't know. See you guys tomorrow. She rushed out, still wearing Raina's red satin dress and gold sandals. The air was fresh and crisp, stimulating her thoughts and causing goosebumps on her skin. The neighborhood was quiet now, with only a few houses lit up. She turned the corner a block from home and ran into a dog with long, silky black fur that had ribbon braided into it. She couldn't help but laugh. The dog barked and wagged his tail, as if he wanted her to go along with him. Just a few minutes wouldn't hurt, she thought. She followed him into an alley. There was a handsome man sitting on a large black horse with white orchids braided into its tail and mane. It was the strangest thing Susanna had ever seen. She was compelled to discover more. You're so beautiful, the young man said as he leaped off his horse. He had bells that jingled on his cowboy boots, and he wore a tall black hat. He was made of shadows, as if the darkness came together to paint him into the night. He was only a few inches taller than Susanna's 5 feet. He held the loveliest silver guitar and strummed it gently. Come away with me, my love, beyond the moon and the stars. His melodic voice rang out into the night, and Susanna's heart fluttered in her chest. As he continued to sing romantic melodies she'd never heard before, the night faded into the gray light before dawn. He waved to her, mounted his horse, and rode away with his dog following. Susanna shook her head as if waking from a dream and rushed the block to her house. Her father was waiting for her in the kitchen, eyes red with tears. Where have you been? I've been looking all over for you. Are you okay? Did someone hurt you? She shook her head. She didn't know what to answer. Her father hugged her tightly. Please, what's going on with you? I don't know, Papa. It was so weird. I lost track of time and didn't come home until after 10. On my way back, I ran into a young man riding a horse, and he sang to me. It was lovely, and I couldn't leave until he was done. He's a demon. Stay away from him, Susanna. Go to your room. I'm calling Father Vasquez to come see you. Susanna changed out of the dress into thick, fluffy pajamas. She got under her comforter and sank into her soft pillow. Her body was grateful to finally rest. She must have stood in the alley all night, but it seemed like only a few minutes. Her memory of the experience was fading like a faraway dream. She closed her eyes and slowed her breath, but she couldn't sleep. No matter what position she lay in or how she stretched, she couldn't find peace. She kept hearing the man's enchanting music playing in her head, and though lovely, it kept her from slumber. Throughout the day, Susanna could neither sleep nor eat. She couldn't read or bake her favorite recipes. Her thoughts were haunted by the man's song. She had to find him again. She knew her father would never allow it. She would wait until he fell asleep tonight and then sneak out.
Speaking of sneaking out, I have to pee.
She put on a yellow dress with blue flowers, brushed her waist-long hair until it shined, then climbed into bed and pulled the comforter over her. When her father opened the door to check on her, she feigned sleep. Finally, she heard the door to her father's bedroom close. She waited another hour just to be sure he was sleeping. She carried her sandals until she was out the front door, then put them on. As she stood on the porch, the man rode up and stopped at the gate to her yard. He jumped down and tied his horse to the fence post. His dog followed closely behind him. Susanna sat down on the porch steps to see what the man would do. He stood in front of the gate and strummed his silver guitar, the dog sitting politely at his feet. Then he began to sing to her. Once again, he serenaded her through the night until just before the light of day. He climbed onto his horse and waved farewell. She should think the entire adventure was crazy. Really, who dressed like that anymore and rode horses in the city? But the novelty made the experience even more precious, and Susanna was sure she was in love. She would talk to her father and make him understand. Susanna came in, dizzy and nauseated. She couldn't walk across the living room without losing her balance. Her father put her in his favorite chair in front of the fire and let her stay home from school again. He covered her with a blanket and tried to feed her soup, like he did when she was little. She couldn't bring herself to swallow it and spit it back into the bowl. It tasted like dirt. Everything tasted like dirt. Nothing smelled good or felt comforting anymore either.
I'm done peeing. I'll clean it up later. Continue, please.
It was as if all her senses were dead to anything but her love's wonderful presence. She put her hand on her father's. I love him, Papa. I don't know why, but he's all I can think about. No, he's evil. You have to leave him alone, Susanna. Father Vasquez can't come until tomorrow, but maybe I can have someone else come help, okay? Her father went into the kitchen and spoke agitatedly to someone on the phone. After a few minutes, he came back to sit with her. I'm staying home with you today. Then he sat on the smaller chair that was usually her place and began to read from La Llorona, occasionally reaching out to pat her hand while he read to her. A few chapters into the book, someone knocked on the front door. Her father got up and answered it. Father Martinez, thank you for coming so quickly. No problem. I'm sorry Father Vasquez couldn't be here, but he's conducting a deathbed vigil for Rosa Morales. She has a wasting disease and nothing is helping her, the father answered as he came into the house. But Rosa is just a girl. She's only a year older than Susanna. Her father looked more worried. I know, but the doctors say there's nothing they can do. God bless the poor child. Father Vasquez walked over and sat in the chair next to Susanna and smiled gently at her. Hello, Susanna. Your father says you're not feeling well and that you've been sneaking out at night. You know you must wait to be with a man until marriage. Not just because God tells you to, but also to protect you. You don't want to give yourself to a stranger. Father, I didn't do anything like that. I just listened to him sing. But I do love him. Then Susanna proceeded to tell the priest every detail about her mysterious suitor. At first he listened calmly, but by the end of the story he was fidgeting nervously. Susanna, do not go near that man again. He's evil, just like your father told you. You must listen to us. The father blessed her and gave her a new rosary to keep with her at all times. You should take her away for a few days, Juan, maybe to your mother's house. I need to talk to Father Vasquez. I think that demon might be what's making Rosa ill. Her father nodded in agreement. After the priest left, they packed an overnight bag and climbed into her father's old truck. It made horrible growling sounds and occasionally sputtered, but it never stopped, much like her father. Susanna perked up when they arrived at her grandmother's. They had always been close, but they didn't get to visit much when Susanna was in school. Abuela, I've missed you! Susanna rushed into her grandmother's sweet-smelling embrace. Abuela always smelled like cake and flowers. Oh, it's good to see you, my love. Come inside, I have dinner ready. Although her abuela made all her favorite foods, she couldn't eat anything. Everything tasted like dry old earth from an empty lot. Her senses were deadened, even more than before. The colors of the world faded, and everything she heard seemed far away. It was as if her grandmother and her father were talking to her from the other end of a long tunnel. Even if her love was a demon, she couldn't let him go. She couldn't live in this gray world without his song. She raged against her father's words. Nothing wonderful could be evil. She knew her love would find her. They were meant to be together. That night, the moon hung full above her grandmother's house, lighting up the world below in a bright silvery haze. Susanna sat on the wooden fence that encircled her grandmother's backyard. The dog arrived first, running up to her and nuzzling her legs hanging over the fence. Then she saw him riding up in the moonlight, the only darkness in the brightly illuminated night. It was as if he absorbed the light around him, and a deep nothingness created his form. She didn't know why she was sure he was handsome. The shadows that made him were hard to see, like a slight glimpse of something from the corner of your eye. It must be his music that made him irresistible. It's time for you to come with me, Susanna. He waved for her to follow him. then turned the horse and rode into a dark shadow behind her grandmother's yard. It was an absence of the world, not a place in it. Susanna was sure of it, but she had no choice. She hopped down from the fence and approached the darkness. The more she walked, the further he rode away from her. Only the dog stayed by her side. Eventually, she was surrounded by the emptiness, the freezing air hitting her skin, and the ground cold beneath her feet. She couldn't see anything, and it was getting hard to breathe as if the air had thinned. She tried to scream, but no sound emerged. Susanna turned around and started running back towards her grandmother's house, knowing she'd made a terrible mistake. No matter how long she ran, she found nothing but darkness. Somewhere, the dog had abandoned her too. She sat on the freezing earth and put her face in her hands, sobbing. "Now you're ready for me." He stood in front of her, part of the darkness enveloping her. She couldn't see him, but she could feel his presence, even in the air around her. "Yes, please, my love. Take me home with you and sing to me again." She reached her arms up to him. "This is my home and the singing is over. It's time to feast. I had chosen someone else, but then I spotted you, and you are so much more deliciously innocent." Then he cackled cruelly, and she could finally make out something in the darkness, a large mouth full of long silver fangs. The first bite that tore into her broke what sanity she had left. The monster slowly consumed her, enjoying each morsel flavored with screams of agony. When he finished, nothing remained of Susanna. Now he would need to find another beauty to devour. We often take the father figures in our life for granted, pushing their nurturing aside. But their overprotection comes from a place of love. We would do well to listen to them. They have traveled countless more paths than we have, and seen into the world at a greater depth.
Oh, Susanna.
So Edgar, do you have any questions about the story?
What is that Diablo celebration thing?
Well, in Guatemala, it's a burning the devil ceremony. So the men in the cities and the villages dress up like devils and chase children around, and at the end everybody has bonfires in their yard and burn all the trash. Kind of like the idea of getting rid of the evil.
Makes sense. I should try it.
We should. That sounds like a great thing for us to do. Edgar,
Yes,
do you have anything you want to tell our lovelies at home about the story tonight?
I do. First and foremost, listen to your father figures, for they are wise and will prevent you from being eaten. And the second, about the story tonight, if your mistress begins telling a story, make sure you run to the little servant's room before the beginning. Otherwise, you will make a disaster in the washroom. Forgive me.
Well, you're the one that has to clean it.
So learn from my mistakes.
Okay, my lovelies, be very good so you can be with us next week for another Monstrously Modern Fable. We look forward to seeing you again.
Ta.